The world had changed. Ethan stared out of the cracked window of his makeshift laboratory, watching dust particles dance in the shaft of sunlight that cut through the gloom. Outside, the once bustling metropolis was now a graveyard of skyscrapers, their skeletal frames reaching up toward a sky that had witnessed humanity's near extinction. Streets that had once teemed with life were now silent avenues where nature had begun its slow reclamation. Weeds pushed through cracked concrete, and vines crawled up abandoned buildings, as if the earth itself was eager to erase any evidence that people had ever existed. Ethan turned away from the window and back to his workbench. Among the scattered tools and salvaged components lay his creation, a machine born from desperation and hope. For 3 years, he had wandered alone through the ruins, searching for signs of other survivors. For 3 years, he had found nothing but echoes of the past. As an engineer, Ethan had always believed that technology could solve any problem before the catastrophe. He had designed systems that had changed lives. Now, he hoped his skills could help him find what remained of humanity. The device before him was a sophisticated detection system, cobbled together from parts salvaged from research facilities and military installations. It was designed to detect human biosignatures over vast distances, differentiating them from animals or environmental anomalies. "Today's the day," he said aloud, his voice sounding strange in the silence that had become his constant companion. "Today, we find out if anyone else is out there." His fingers, calloused from years of survival, made the final adjustments to the machine. He had tested it countless times, but this would be the first full-scale scan. The device hummed to life, its salvaged power cells glowing with a soft blue light. Ethan felt a flutter of anticipation in his chest as he initiated the scanning sequence. Minutes passed as the machine processed data, its internal components whirring softly. Ethan paced the room, occasionally glancing at the status indicators. Then, a ping, soft but distinct, broke the silence. Ethan rushed to the display screen. A signal, weak but unmistakable. The coordinates indicated a location about 10 miles to the northeast, in what had once been a residential district. Ethan's heart raced. After years of solitude, the prospect of finding another person was almost overwhelming. He checked and rechecked the data, ensuring it wasn't a false positive. The signal persisted. With trembling hands, he initiated the identification protocol, a new feature he had added to help determine if the detected biosignature belonged to a healthy human. The machine processed this request, its lights blinking as calculations were performed. The screen flickered, and then a message appeared that stopped Ethan's breath. Anomaly detected. Subject, Ethan Miller. Status, Impostor. Ethan stared at the screen, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The machine had somehow identified him, not the distant signal, as an impostor. It made no sense. He was Ethan Miller. He had built this machine with his own hands. How could he be an impostor? "System error," he muttered, his voice shaky. He ran a diagnostic, certain that some malfunction had caused this bizarre result. The diagnostic came back clean, no errors detected. He tried again, specifically instructing the machine to analyze the northeastern signal, not himself. The result was the same. Anomaly detected. Subject, Ethan Miller. Status, Impostor. A cold sensation spread through Ethan's body. What did this mean? Was the machine defective after all, or was there something about himself that he didn't know? The distant signal continued to pulse on the screen, a beacon of hope now tainted with confusion. Ethan slumped into his chair, his mind racing. If he was an impostor, what did that make him, and who or what was sending the signal from the northeast? These questions haunted him as night fell over the ruins. Sleep eluded him as he tossed on his makeshift bed, the machine's verdict echoing in his thoughts. By morning, he had made a decision. He would investigate the signal, but first, he needed to understand what the machine had discovered about him. Ethan spent the next day disassembling and reassembling parts of the detection system, checking every component for flaws. He found none. The design was sound, the execution flawless. If the machine was functioning correctly, then the problem lay elsewhere, with him. He recalled snippets of the time before the catastrophe, his work at the research facility, his colleagues, the early warnings of the disaster that would nearly wipe out humanity. But as he probed deeper into his memories, he found areas that seemed blurred, as if viewed through a fog. Had it always been this way? Or was his memory deteriorating? As the sun began to set on the second day, Ethan made another disturbing discovery. While examining the machine's detection algorithms, he realized it was designed to identify subtle differences in human biosignatures, differences that might indicate genetic modifications or synthetic elements. It was a feature he didn't remember programming. "When did I add this?" he whispered to the empty room. He ran a self-scan, connecting sensors to his own body. The results were incomprehensible at first. Readings that suggested his cellular structure contained elements that weren't entirely biological. Portions of his neural pathways showed patterns consistent with artificial construction. Ethan disconnected the sensors, his hands trembling so violently that he knocked tools from the workbench. It couldn't be true. He was human. He had memories, feelings, scars from childhood. He remembered his parents, his education, his first love. These weren't fabrications, were they? He returned to the window, gazing out at the ruined city as darkness fell. Stars appeared in the night sky, indifferent to the turmoil below. In their cold light, Ethan faced a terrifying possibility. What if he wasn't who he thought he was? What if the memories he cherished were implanted or modified? What if he was, indeed, an impostor? Sleep came fitfully that night, filled with dreams of laboratory and faceless scientists. He woke with the first light, his decision made. He would seek out the signal, find whoever was out there, and perhaps discover the truth about himself in the process. Ethan packed supplies for the journey: water, preserved food, medical supplies, and a few tools. He also took the portable component of his detection device, which would help him home in on the signal. With a last look at his sanctuary of the past year, he stepped out into the wilderness that had once been a city. The journey was arduous. Roads were blocked by collapsed buildings and overgrown with vegetation. Several times, Ethan had to change course to avoid areas where the infrastructure had become too unstable. The portable detector guided him, its soft beeping growing stronger as he approached the source of the signal. As he traveled, Ethan's mind wandered through his memories, searching for inconsistencies, for any hint that they might not be his own. He remembered a childhood in a small coastal town, playing on beaches and climbing trees. He remembered college, the excitement of new ideas, the pride of academic achievement. He remembered falling in love, the pain of heartbreak, the comfort of friendship. But now, a seed of doubt had been planted. Were these memories truly his? Or were they borrowed from someone else? Or perhaps entirely fabricated? On the second day of his journey, Ethan encountered something that stopped him in his tracks. In a clearing amid the ruins, he found evidence of recent human activity. A campfire, no more than a day old. His heart raced. Someone had been here, someone alive. He followed these new signs eagerly, noticing footprints in the soft earth, broken branches that indicated a path through the dense regrowth. The signal on his detector grew stronger, confirming he was heading in the right direction. By late afternoon, he spotted smoke rising above the trees about a half-mile ahead. Moving cautiously now, Ethan approached what appeared to be a small settlement nestled in what had once been a park. From his vantage point on a hill, he counted 3 structures, crude but effective shelters built from salvaged materials. A figure moved between them, tending to a fire. Ethan's throat tightened. After years of solitude, the sight of another human being was almost too much to bear. He watched, transfixed, as the figure, a woman with long, gray-streaked hair, went about her tasks with practiced efficiency. As he observed, a disturbing sensation began to grow within him. There was something familiar about her movements, about the way she had constructed her camp. It reminded him of himself. The realization struck him like a physical blow. What if she was the real Ethan Miller? What if he was merely a copy? The thought was so disturbing that he retreated, moving back through the woods to a safe distance. He needed time to process this, to decide how to approach her, if at all. That night, camped in the shell of an old convenience store, Ethan reviewed the data from his machine once more. The signal was definitely coming from the settlement, but there was something else now, a secondary reading that hadn't been there before. It seemed to indicate that there were two distinct biosignatures in the area, the one from the settlement and his own. But his biosignature had changed. The readings now showed fewer anomalies, as if proximity to the settlement was somehow normalizing his cellular structure. It made no sense, unless he was somehow connected to whoever was in that settlement. Unless they shared something fundamental. Morning brought no clarity, but Ethan knew he couldn't delay any longer. He had to make contact, had to know the truth. With the detector tucked into his pack, he made his way back to the settlement, approaching openly this time, not wanting to appear threatening. He was within 50 yards when the woman spotted him. She froze, staring in his direction with an expression he couldn't read from this distance. Then, slowly, she raised a hand in greeting. Ethan returned the gesture, his heart pounding. He walked forward, step by careful step, until they stood just 10 feet apart. "Hello," he said, his voice rough from disuse. The woman studied him, her eyes, a striking blue that seemed oddly familiar, widening in what might have been recognition. "You're one of them," she said finally. It wasn't a question. One of who? Ethan asked, though a part of him already suspected the answer. "The copies," she replied. "The ones they made before the end." Her words confirmed his worst fears. Yet somehow, hearing them spoken aloud brought a strange relief. At least now he knew. "My name is Ethan Miller," he said. "At least, that's who I believe I am." The woman's expression softened slightly. "You are, in a way. You have his memories, his knowledge, his skills. But you're not the original." "And you are?" She shook her head. "No. The original Ethan Miller died in the first wave of the catastrophe, along with most of the research team. I'm Hannah Levy. I worked with Ethan at the facility. I'm a copy too, just like you." Ethan felt as if the ground had dropped away beneath him. "But the machine, it identified me as an impostor." Hannah nodded. "Because you are, in a technical sense. We all are. The replication project was the government's insurance policy against extinction. They created copies, synthetic humans with the memories and personalities of key individuals. When the catastrophe came, we were activated." "How many of us are there?" Ethan asked, struggling to absorb this new reality. "I don't know for certain. Dozens, maybe hundreds, scattered across the country, each with a mission to rebuild, to find others, to ensure humanity's survival in some form." She gestured towards his pack. "Is that a detection device? Did you build it?" Ethan nodded, pulling out the portable unit. "It found your signal, but it also identified me as not human." Hannah examined the device with obvious admiration. "Impressive work. The original Ethan would be proud." She looked up at him. "May I show you something?" She led him to one of the shelters, where she retrieved a small metallic object from a locked container. It was similar to his detector, but smaller. more refined. "This is an original scanner from the facility," she explained. "It's designed to identify and authenticate replicas like us. It helps us find each other." "Why didn't you find me sooner?" Ethan asked. "Your signal was dormant until recently. Something must have activated it. Perhaps building your detector triggered it." She activated her scanner, which emitted a soft hum as it analyzed him. "Your replica 17 of Ethan Miller. Your creation date was 3 weeks before the catastrophe." Ethan stared at the readout, confronting the irrefutable evidence of his artificial nature. "Do you have others here? Other replicas?" Hannah nodded. "2 more. They're out scavenging today. Dr. Marcus Powell, a medical researcher, and Sophia Chen, an agricultural specialist." "How long have you been here?" "Almost 2 years. We've been trying to establish a sustainable community, using our combined knowledge." She hesitated, then added, "We could use an engineer." The invitation was clear, but Ethan wasn't ready to accept it yet. His entire understanding of himself had been shattered. He needed time to rebuild it. "I need to think," he said. "This is a lot to process." Hannah nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Of course, you're welcome to stay as long as you need. We have food, clean water, shelter." That night, Ethan sat by the community fire, watching Hannah interact with the other replicas who had returned from their excursion. Dr. Powell was a tall, thin man with a perpetual look of concentration. Sophia was younger, with a quiet intensity about her. Both had greeted Ethan with cautious optimism, recognizing him as one of their kind, as they shared a meal of cultivated vegetables and trapped game. Ethan listened to their stories. Each had awakened after the catastrophe with a complete set of memories, only to discover later that they were replicas. Each had struggled with this reality in their own way. "I denied it for months," Dr. Powell admitted, "convinced myself the scanner was malfunctioning. I wandered alone, trying to find evidence that I was the real Marcus Powell." "What changed?" Ethan asked. "I found my own grave," Powell said simply. "In the ruins of my hometown. That's when I knew the truth." Sophia's experience had been different. "I always suspected something was wrong with my memories. There were gaps, inconsistencies. Finding Hannah and learning about the replication project was actually a relief. It explained everything." As the night deepened and the others retired to their shelters, Ethan remained by the fire, staring into the flames. Hannah joined him after a while, sitting quietly beside him. "What happens now?" he asked finally. "That's up to you," she replied. "Some replicas choose to continue their programmed missions. Others create new purposes for themselves. We're not just copies. Ethan, we evolve, learn, change, just like humans do." "But we're not human, aren't we?" Hannah challenged. "We think, feel, hope, fear. Our bodies may be synthetic, but our experiences are real." Ethan considered this. "My machine, it found something else. It detected changes in my cellular structure when I got closer to this settlement. Do you know what that means?" Hannah's expression grew serious. "It's the resonance effect. Replicas from the same batch or facility tend to synchronize when in proximity. It's a security feature, a way to verify authentic replicas and prevent infiltration by counterfeits." "Counterfeits? There are fake replicas." In the final days before the catastrophe, there were rumors of foreign powers creating their own replicas, ones designed to sabotage our missions. The resonance effect was implemented to help identify them. She studied him. "Your detector picked up on this, which is quite remarkable. You've essentially recreated our authentication system independently." The revelation brought a strange comfort to Ethan, even without knowing his true nature. He had followed the path laid out in his programming, using his engineering skills to find others of his kind. "The original Ethan," he said hesitantly. "What was he like?" Hannah smiled. "Brilliant, dedicated, sometimes too focused on problems to remember basic things like eating or sleeping. Her expression grew wistful. He had a way of seeing solutions where others saw only obstacles. Like me, Ethan said softly. Yes, Hannah agreed. Like you? The following days brought a gradual acceptance as Ethan integrated into the small community. He shared his knowledge, helping to improve their power generation systems and water purification methods. In turn, they helped him understand more about his nature as a replica. He learned that his body, while synthetic, was designed to mimic human biology in almost every way. He needed food, water, and rest. He could feel pain, pleasure, and everything in between. His brain stored memories and learned new skills just as a human brain would. The main differences were his enhanced durability, resistance to disease, and potentially longer lifespan, features designed to ensure survival in a post-catastrophe world. A week after his arrival, Ethan decided to retrieve the rest of his equipment from his old laboratory. Dr. Powell accompanied him, and during their journey, the doctor shared more about the replication project. It was highly classified, Powell explained as they navigated the overgrown streets. Only a handful of people knew the full scope. The replicas themselves, us, weren't told. Of course, we were activated with the belief that we were the originals. Why the deception? Ethan asked. Psychological stability. The developers feared that knowing we were copies from the start might cause identity crises or even psychotic breaks. Better to let us discover the truth gradually, after we'd already established our sense of self. It seems cruel, Ethan observed. Powell shrugged. Perhaps, but effective. Most replicas who survived the initial confusion have adapted well to the knowledge. Those who couldn't? Well, not all replicas are still functioning. The implication was clear. Some had chosen to end their existence rather than live as copies. Ethan wondered if he might have made the same choice had he discovered the truth while still alone. They reached his laboratory by nightfall, camping there before gathering his equipment the next day. As Ethan packed his tools and components, he found himself lingering over the detection machine that had started his journey of self-discovery. You should bring it, Powell suggested. It could help us find other replicas. Ethan nodded, carefully disassembling the device for transport. As he worked, a thought occurred to him. The machine identified me as an impostor before I knew I was a replica. How did it know? Powell examined the components with interest. You likely incorporated design elements from your original memories. Technology from the replication project that you weren't consciously aware of. Your subconscious remembered even if you didn't. It was a reasonable explanation, yet something about it bothered Ethan. If his subconscious had access to knowledge he wasn't aware of, what else might be hidden in his mind? What other purposes might he have been programmed to fulfill? They returned to the settlement 2 days later, laden with equipment and supplies. Hannah greeted them with news. Another replica had made contact via radio. A communications specialist named Daniel, who was part of a different group about 50 miles to the south. They have 12 replicas, she told them excitedly, and they've made contact with 3 other settlements. There could be hundreds of us out there. The revelation sparked something in Ethan, a sense of belonging to something larger than himself. He wasn't just a copy. He was part of a network designed to ensure humanity's continuation. That night, as the community celebrated the news with a feast of their latest harvest, Ethan found himself watching his companions with new eyes. Sophia, working tirelessly to develop sustainable agriculture. Dr. Powell, using his medical knowledge to improve their health and well-being. Hannah, whose leadership held them together. Each was a replica, yet each was also unique, shaped by their experiences since activation. And himself? He had built a machine to find others, fulfilling his purpose even without knowing what that purpose was. There was something profound in that, something that transcended the question of whether he was an original or a copy. Later, as the celebration wound down, Ethan approached Hannah with a question that had been troubling him. "The machine I built," he said. "It identified me as an impostor, but by your definition, I'm not an impostor. I'm an authentic replica." Hannah considered this. "Your detector wasn't calibrated to recognize replicas as legitimate entities. It only knew to look for pure human biosignatures. To it, anything else was an impostor." "So it wasn't wrong," Ethan persisted, "just limited in its understanding." "Yes," Hannah agreed. "Much like humans were limited in their understanding of what constitutes life, consciousness, personhood." The philosophical implications weren't lost on Ethan. "Do you think we're people? Truly?" Hannah's gaze was steady. "What makes a person, Ethan? Is it their origin, their composition, or is it their capacity for thought, emotion, growth, connection?" Ethan had no answer, but the question would continue to occupy his thoughts in the days that followed. He threw himself into his work, integrating his detection technology with the settlement's existing systems, expanding their ability to find other replicas. 2 weeks after his arrival, the enhanced detection system picked up a new signal, one that didn't match the pattern of known replicas. It was human, but not synthetic. A survivor, perhaps. A true human who had weathered the catastrophe. The community debated how to proceed. Some were cautious, fearing potential hostility from humans who might view replicas as abominations. Others, including Ethan, argued for making contact. "If there are human survivors," he reasoned, "connecting with them should be our priority. Isn't that what we were created for? To ensure humanity's survival?" In the end, they decided to send a small expedition to investigate, Ethan and Sophia, with equipment to verify whether the signal was indeed human and not some anomaly. The journey took 3 days, leading them through territories they hadn't previously explored. The signal originated from a fortified compound that had once been a research station, now surrounded by makeshift defenses. Approaching cautiously, they observed the compound from a distance. There were signs of habitation, smoke from chimneys, cultivated land, even livestock in pens. "Real humans," Sophia whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "After all this time." They watched for hours, documenting the movements of the inhabitants, at least 20 individuals of varying ages, including children. It was more humans in one place than either of them had thought possible after the catastrophe. As the sun began to set, Ethan made a decision. "We should make contact." Sophia looked uncertain. "What if they reject us? What if they see us as threats?" "Then we'll know," Ethan said simply. "But we have to try. It's why we exist." They approached openly, hands raised in the universal gesture of peace. Their arrival caused an immediate stir, with several armed individuals rushing to the perimeter. Ethan called out, identifying themselves as friendly travelers seeking contact. After tense negotiations through the fence, they were allowed inside, though under heavy guard. The leader of the community, a weathered woman named Eleanor, questioned them thoroughly about their origins and intentions. Ethan made a crucial decision: honesty. He explained what they were, replicas created before the catastrophe as a fail-safe for human knowledge and skills. He explained their settlement, their efforts to rebuild, their desire to connect with other survivors. Eleanor listened with an impassive expression. When Ethan finished, she was silent for a long moment before responding. "We've heard rumors of your kind," she said finally. "Synthetic humans, with the memories of the dead. Some called it an abomination, others, a miracle." She studied them intently. "I'm not sure which it is, but I know this. We need all the help we can get. If you have knowledge that can help us survive, we'd be fools to reject it." It wasn't acceptance, exactly, but it was a beginning. Ethan and Sophia spent 2 days at the human settlement, sharing what they had learned about post-catastrophe survival while carefully observing the humans' methods and innovations. On the 3rd day, as they prepared to return to their own community, Eleanor approached Ethan privately. "I knew the original Ethan Miller," she said, surprising him. "We worked on different projects at the National Laboratory, but our paths crossed occasionally." Ethan felt a strange disconnection, hearing about his template from someone who had known him. "What was he like?" he asked, echoing the question he had asked Hannah. Eleanor's answer was different. "Arrogant, brilliant, but always convinced he was right. Terrible at collaboration." She studied his face. "You look exactly like him, but you're not him. You listen more. You consider other perspectives." "Is that good or bad?" Ethan asked, unsure how to take this assessment. "It's different," Eleanor said, "and maybe that's the point. You're not just a copy, you're an evolution. Perhaps that's what your creators intended all along." The idea stayed with Ethan during the journey back to their settlement. He wasn't just a replica of Ethan Miller. He was a version of Ethan that had been shaped by different experiences, different challenges. The original had never faced the end of civilization, never discovered he was a synthetic being, never had to redefine his entire concept of self. Upon their return, Hannah called a community meeting to discuss the human settlement and the possibility of an alliance. As they debated the pros and cons, Ethan found himself increasingly certain that connection between replicas and humans, between settlements, between the past and the future, was their best hope for building something meaningful from the ruins. Late that night, after the others had retired, Ethan returned to his detection machine. He made adjustments to its parameters, redefining what it searched for. No longer would it simply identify human versus non-human biosignatures. Now it would recognize the full spectrum of life in this new world: original humans, replicas, and perhaps other variations yet to be discovered. As he worked, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had built a machine to find other survivors, only to discover that he himself was not what he thought he was. The machine had identified him as an impostor, and in doing so had set him on a path to a deeper truth. He was Ethan Miller, yet not Ethan Miller. He was both less and more than the original, a continuation of a life cut short, but also something new, something that had never existed before. The detection machine hummed as it processed these new parameters. On its screen, a map of the surrounding area showed multiple signals now: the replicas in their settlement, the humans in theirs, and other, fainter signals that might be additional communities. Ethan studied the display, feeling a sense of purpose stronger than any he had known since awakening in this ruined world. He was not an imposter. He was a bridge between what humanity had been and what it might become. Outside, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, a new day in a world that was, against all odds, still alive, still evolving, still capable of hope. Ethan stepped outside to greet it, no longer questioning his right to exist in it. The machine had identified him as an impostor, but in doing so, had helped him discover something more valuable than authenticity: purpose. And in a world rebuilt from ashes, perhaps purpose was the only identity that truly mattered.